Story time about the guy who pretended to be gay in high school to get closer to all the girls. So it was the first day of my freshman year, and at lunch this guy came and sat with me and my friends. And we were super confused because he was like one of the popular boys. And we were like, oh, why aren't you sitting with your friends? And he's like, oh, because ever since I came out as gay, they don't want to be friends with me anymore, and they're being super mean to me. So we felt really bad, and we started getting to know him, and he was actually a really cool person. So we started inviting him to our sleepovers and everything like that. And because he was gay, we felt really comfortable getting dressed around him, talking about things that we wouldn't talk about in front of anybody. So like 2 months go past, and at this point he knows so much about us, like stuff that nobody else knew. Like, he even knew that one of my friends was born with both private parts, which is something that she never told anybody except for me and the girls in my friend group. Well, we're all on FaceTime the one day, and my friend goes, oh, have you ever seen boobs before? And he goes, no. So we all lift up our shirt like for part 2. Okay, part 2 about the guy who pretended to be gay in high school to get closer to all the girls. So like I said, we all lift up our shirts, and because we were on FaceTime, we couldn't see if he screenshotted anything. And then the one night we were having a sleepover, and he was really upset that night because apparently the popular boys were making fun of him. Because the only reason why he was gay is because he couldn't get with any girls. So me and my friends thought of a solution, but like we were just trying to be nice. And now looking on it, that is the dumbest shit that we've ever done. And we're all like, oh, well, why don't you just say that you did the nasty with all of us? And he was like, well, I don't think they'll believe it, even if you guys said, yeah, you did do it. So we were like, okay, then let's do it for real. So that night, we did the nasty, all 5 of us. So that morning, we all wake up and he's literally gone. Like, he didn't wake us up to say goodbye, which wasn't normal. So the weekend goes past. Monday, we go to school. And in the morning, my friends and I have time to walk around, and everybody's just staring at us, like for part 3. Part 3 about the guy who pretended to be gay to get closer to all the girls. So like I said, we got to school and everybody's just looking at us. And all of a sudden, we get tagged in this Instagram account. And there's a video of all 5 of us doing the nasty in my bedroom. There's pictures of me and my friends getting undressed. And there's a screenshot of the FaceTime where we all showed our boobs. And under the post, he was exposing a bunch of shit about us. And my one best friend was literally crying so hard because everybody now knew that she was born with like both parts. And also after gym class, we would just tell him to come in the locker room, and the teacher didn't care because he was gay. So there were also a bunch of pictures of other girls on there too. I'm not even going to talk about the legal trouble, but my parents made me move schools because they cared about my image and they didn't want me hanging out with any of those friends anymore. He got expelled. The teacher got fired for that bullshit. So that just ruined having a gay best friend for me. Oh, also my parents saw me have a foursome in my bedroom. Story time, my boyfriend wouldn't let me break up with him, so I cheated on him with his best friend. So we're gonna call my boyfriend Jay and his best friend Mike. Well, I met these 2 boys through my best friend, and I really liked Mike. Mike and I would talk all the time. We would FaceTime 24/7, but whenever the subject of dating came up, he said that he couldn't because his best friend really liked me. So he was trying to set me up with Jay, but not really because he really liked me. So I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I'll date Jay for a little bit and then I'll break up with him. Worst mistake of my fucking life. Every time I would try to break up with this kid, he would be like, I'm gonna kill myself now. And he would send me videos with him holding up a knife to his neck, cutting his arms whenever I would say we're breaking up. So pretty much I was forced into that relationship. He was manipulative as fuck. It was just not a good situation. Well, the one day Jay was like, oh, do you want to come over Mike's house with me? And of course I said yeah, because I literally was still in love with Mike, his best friend. And my parents were super strict, so I had to sneak over there, like for part 2. Part 2 of how my boyfriend wouldn't let me break up with him, so I cheated on him with his best friend. For the new people, Mike is the best friend and Jay is the guy who I was dating. Anyway, so we get to Mike's house, right? And we're all hanging out, and I was giving Mike a little bit more attention than I was giving Jay. Because obviously, I wasn't interested in Jay. So Jay decided to act like he was pissed off at me, right? And he walks out of the house, right? To see if I would chase after him. Like, obviously I'm not going to. So Mike and I are sitting there watching him walk down the street because he said he was going home. So Mike and I were sitting on the couch and we started making out. And then we heard the fucking front door open. And Jay's like, I can't believe you didn't come and talk to me after that, blah, blah, blah. What is this relationship? So then Mike steps in and he's like, yo, you need to drop her. She just tried to make out with me, blah, blah, blah. And I sat there and I was like, yeah, it's true. So Jay starts bawling his eyes out and goes to the fucking kitchen to grab a knife. So after that, Mike called the cops on him, and Mike and I are finally dating now. Story time about how I got caught skipping school almost every day of my senior year. So our school had just started this new thing where you fill out all your contact information online. And my dad was like, okay, yeah, just fill yours out. And it pretty much was who can pick you up, who can make early dismissals for you, who they can call if you're in trouble. Well, I decided to be a sneaky little bastard and put my boyfriend in for every single one of those contacts. I would start school around 7:30 a.m. and I would go to the nurse's office at like 9 a.m. and she would call and my boyfriend would act like my dad and be like, okay, yeah, just let her drive home. Well, my guidance counselor noticed after about 3 months of me never being at school. So she called the number hoping to speak to my dad. But instead she got my boyfriend. And he just thought it was a random person, so he didn't act like my dad. Because neither of us knew. Like for part 2. Okay, part 2. Okay, so pretty much what happened after that is she called and like she found out that it wasn't my dad. And then she went digging and like she like called my sister to the office and she was like, what's your dad's phone number? And my sister was like, why? Like, don't you guys have it already? And I also put the same numbers for my sisters so that way in case this day came, then you know, it wouldn't look suspicious. Well, I don't know what she threatened my sister with, but she scared the hell out of her, so she gave her my dad's number. And so my sister told me whenever she got home, so I went to school the next day. And it was like a surprise party whenever I walked in the office. The dean was there, the principal was there, and my guidance counselor. So I got in trouble and then they were like, oh, we're calling your dad. So what did I do? I left before they called him. Story time about my extremely toxic boyfriend. So when I was in high school, I was dating this boy for 3 months. We're gonna call him Nick. And my friends hated him because he was super mean to all of them, but he was super nice to me. Well, after dating for about a month, he started acting super weird. Like, he stopped paying attention to me, he didn't want to hang out with me. And I was going through a depression this time because my dad had just died. I wasn't really doing my makeup anymore, I wouldn't do my hair anymore. And I started gaining a little bit of weight because all I would do is sleep in bed all the time. Eat 24/7. Well, soon our 2 months was coming up. And he wanted to go to this party. So I literally begged him to FaceTime me. And I was asking him, oh, what should I wear? So I put on this dress that was really tight-fitting, which I was already super uncomfortable about wearing because of the fact that I had a little bit of a belly now. So he picks me up, we go to this party, and I go and I start hanging out with a few of my friends. Well, one of my friends comes over and shows me something that he posted on his private story, Life for Part 2. Part 2 about my extremely toxic boyfriend. So like I said, one of my friends comes over and shows me something that he posted on his private story. It was literally a screen recording of me trying to get the dress on that was super tight fitting. And then a screenshot of my face after when I had the dress on. Because obviously I was upset that it didn't fit the way it did before. And the video said, imagine having a girlfriend that was fat as hell. Ew, I have one. Then the picture of me said, ew, she's sad now, like what the fuck, go to the gym and lose some weight. On his private story, which had one of my friends. And she was super pretty, and apparently he tried getting with her. That's a whole nother story. So after that, I Ubered home from the party. And as soon as I got home, I started crying and I told my older brother about it. So he literally drove us back to the party and beat the absolute shit out of my boyfriend. Well, someone called the cops, my brother spent a night in jail, and my boyfriend got an underage. And my brother won't talk to me now because I'm back with my boyfriend.
Story time about how my fiance broke off our wedding because of my best friend. My fiance and I had been together for 2 years, but my best friend and I had been friends for over 8 years. So I trusted her with my life. When my fiance and I met, she approved and she loved him. She was always looking for a new relationship because she could never commit to anyone. Eventually, I started feeling like she was envious of the relationship because I had found someone that I truly loved and that wanted to marry me. On the other hand, she was a serial dater and went out with so many guys she couldn't even keep track. One night we had a double date and she brought this new guy she met. Throughout the whole date, my fiance and my best friend were hitting it off, talking, making jokes, and I was actually really happy because I was happy they got along. Her date even noticed this and commented about how we should switch dates. I thought it was so funny. Well, little did I know that after that night, they actually started texting every once in a while. Inside jokes and memes, stuff like that. I did know about it, and I thought it was really cute, and I was so happy that they were getting along. After all, she was going to be the godmother of our future children. One day I saw she sent him a picture through text message. You'll never guess what I found. Come back for part 2. Part 2. So I noticed my best friend sent my fiance a picture, and he was in the bathroom, so I went ahead and opened the picture. You guys, it was a selfie of her, wrapped in a towel, fresh out of the shower. So of course I show it to him, and he's like, oh my god, why would she send that? He totally played it off, like he had no idea why she would send that to him. So I call my best friend and I say, hey, did you just send my fiance this picture? She hesitated for a second, and then she's like, oh my god, please don't tell me I sent him the picture by mistake. And I was like, yeah, you sent him a picture of you in a towel. And she said, I'm so mortified, I'm so sorry, I meant to send it to somebody else. And then she's like, you believe me, right? And part of me didn't want to, but part of me had to. I couldn't believe that my best friend would do that, so I said, yeah, of course I believe you. And she completely changed the subject and told me about the guy that she was currently seeing, who she actually meant to send the picture to. A few weeks passed by, and my fiance says he has to go on a work trip. Weirdly enough, she said she was going to go on a trip with a guy that she had just met. I asked her to meet the guy before they actually went on a trip, and she said no, because he's really shy. Can you believe they went on this trip together? Come back for Part 3. So my best friend and my fiance go on a trip by themselves behind my back. The whole time they were on their trips, I thought he was on a work trip, and I thought she was with some dude. Because of the time difference, my fiance kept saying that he couldn't FaceTime, so we would just talk on the phone. The conversations were really short, and he was acting really strange. He told me he was on a work trip to London, and because the whole thing felt so strange, I decided to call his mom. So I call her and I'm like, hey, where did he travel to again? And she replied, Aruba. I didn't say anything to her, and I just got off the phone. I knew he was lying, and I knew my best friend was in Aruba. I connected the dots and realized they were both on a vacation together. The day that he was supposed to fly in, I showed up to the airport knowing that he was coming from Aruba, and I see them walking out to arrivals hand in hand. They saw me right away, and my best friend literally ran away. That's when he told me that he no longer wanted to be with me and that he wanted to be with my best friend. I had already paid for the wedding. He was such a coward. 2 months later, I found out she cheated on him, and he came back to me. I said no. Story time about how I dated 2 brothers at the same time, and they both knew it. So I'm a personal trainer, and last year these 2 brothers came into my gym and wanted personal training. Well, I signed them up and they started training with me. They both constantly flirted with me, but I knew that they both had girlfriends. So I would usually train them at the same time, but they decided to train separately. This is when things got a little tricky. So one of the brothers, I'll call him James. James was always flirting with me, and he made it very clear that he liked me. Every time he would flirt with me, I'd be like, hey, don't you have a girlfriend? He'd say, yeah, but you know, we're kind of breaking up soon. I never took him seriously though. And the second brother, let's call him John. John also flirted a tiny bit, but he was a little bit more shy than James. Lo and behold, James comes into the gym one day and says that he broke up with his girlfriend, and he started crying, and I felt really bad for him, and we talked for a bit, and then we trained, and then afterward he asked me if I wanted to get a coffee. I said sure. Went to get a coffee, and we basically talked about his relationship. At the end of the coffee date, he actually kissed me. Watch part 2, it's already Part 2 of how I dated 2 brothers at the same time, and they both knew it. So James told me that he broke up with his girlfriend, and we ended up going for a coffee, and he actually kissed me. Because I was his personal trainer, I thought of him as a client. So basically, I didn't think it would go anywhere. On my next session with John, his brother, John says, hey, James said that you guys went on a little date. And I said, well, it wasn't a date. He said, well, when am I going to take you on a date? I said, I thought you had a girlfriend. He said, no, we actually just broke up over the weekend. So I said, sure, we can have lunch. It doesn't have to be a date. And he said, sure, that's fine. So we ended up going for lunch, and he was way more shy than his brother, James. And this actually made me like him. We basically had a 3-hour long lunch. We talked about every single thing you can imagine. We got along super well, and I love that he wasn't trying to flirt with me the whole time like his brother. Then COVID hit and my gym closed, so I couldn't train anyone. Well, this didn't stop them from wanting to hang out with me separately. I basically started going out with each of them separately, and they both knew it. So one day I'm at the beach with John, and his ex comes up to us and throws a beer at him. Part 3 of how I dated 2 brothers at the same time, and they both knew it. I was at the beach with John, one of the brothers, and his ex came up to us and threw a beer at him. And she said, wow, you're doing it again. I was confused. I had no idea what she was talking about. So John says, James and I need to talk to you. He drove me to his place where James was waiting for us. And they basically told me that they were both dating me at the same time and that they didn't mind, and they just basically wanted me to be their shared girlfriend. I was totally confused, bewildered, and I just didn't even know how to respond. And I asked him what his ex-girlfriend meant by, you're doing it again. And he explained that she was also their shared girlfriend and that she wanted to be with them again. It was so messed up. So I didn't speak to them for a few days because I was really confused, but then James talked to me and he said, look, if you're not comfortable with this, we won't do it, but let's just try it out. Just be our shared girlfriend, you'll see, you'll love it. So I became their girlfriend, and we dated for 3 months. Showered me with gifts, paid for everything, and of course I had so much attention. One day I would hang out with one, and then the following day I'd hang out with the other one. Part 4 of how I dated 2 brothers at the same time, and they both knew it. So they basically asked me to be their shared girlfriend. I said yes because I liked them, and they were actually really good boyfriends. So we dated for 3 months. And then their ex shared girlfriend, so yeah, they had a girlfriend before me who they shared. She sent me a DM on Instagram, and she was like, hey, look, I need to tell you something. She warned me that they were looking for a new girlfriend and that they would break up with me. I didn't believe her. Instead, I went to James and John and I said, look, is this true? And they said yes. They told me they only dated girls for 3 months, no more, and that basically our time was up. I was shocked. I felt so used. And stupidly enough, I had fallen in love with them, I know. After that, they didn't talk to me at all. Then I found out that they both had a new girlfriend and they were both sharing her, like me. So I started an Instagram group with all of their ex-girlfriends. And we told their new girlfriend, and she broke up with them. But guess what? John asked me to be his girlfriend again through text. We've been texting for like a week now. What do I do? Story time about how I found out my boyfriend was seeing his ex. And yes, he's still my boyfriend. We haven't broken up. I just don't know what to do. Well, we've been together for 6 months. I met him through some friends, and every time we hang out with those friends, someone always tells me, hey, your boyfriend was hitting on so-and-so. And of course, I just never wanted to believe it. He's really attractive, young, and owns his own business, and I know that attracts a lot of women. So when we first started dating, I gave him the option to have an open relationship because I knew that he was surrounded by women that really wanted to be with him, and he also just had a really social life. He said absolutely not because he didn't want to share me with anyone else. I said, okay, then we're committed. And he said, yeah, we're committed. 2 weeks ago, we decided to move in together and we got a really nice apartment. Right now, we're actually in the process of moving in and buying furniture. Well, 3 days ago, my boyfriend butt dialed me. He didn't realize I could hear the entire conversation he was having over the phone. You'll never guess what I heard. Part 2 is up. Part 2. So my boyfriend butt dials me and doesn't realize I can hear the entire conversation. I could hear him talking to a woman. He was promising her that he would break up with me and move into the new apartment with her. And when she said, I won't believe it until you actually do it, he called her by her name. This is when I realized he's talking to his ex. The same ex he told me was toxic and abusive. He also told her that he only loved her and that the only reason he hadn't broken up with me yet was because he was afraid I would harm myself. And that's when they dropped the bomb. She says, well, I'm 8 weeks along. You gotta hurry up. She was pregnant. By the way, I listened to their conversation for 10 minutes. I knew that he was at his business, so I decided to go over there and see if I could find them. Finally, I spot his car and drive up right next to it. Roll down the window and I say, check your phone. This man didn't even know what to say. He grabbed his phone and he looks at it. The look on his face when he realized I listened to the whole 10-minute conversation. Part 3. So my lying, cheating boyfriend butt dials me and I could hear the entire conversation he was having with his ex, who he was cheating on me with, and who was pregnant. He gets out of his car and runs over to me. He tries to open my car door and asks me to get out, but of course I didn't. My cars and my windows were locked. He started hitting my car window telling me to get out, and I could tell he was pissed because he got caught. So guess what I did? I drove straight to his mama's house and I told her everything. He was a mama's boy and I knew this would crush him. So his mom calls him and tells him to come straight to her house. He started swearing up and down that he only said those things because he's afraid of his crazy ex. He doesn't want her to take the baby away from him. His mom and him convinced me to stay in the relationship. We're still together. I don't know what to do. Should I stay with him or should I leave him? Storytime about how I found out my girlfriend was cheating on me with my sister. Girlfriend and I have been together for 8 months, and when COVID hit, we decided to just quarantine together, and basically we moved in together. Oh, and yes, I am a girl. We got to know each other really well, and we really enjoyed the relationship. Well, my sister lost her job because of COVID, and she asked me if she could move in with my girlfriend and I. Of course, I said yes. She's my sister, and I totally have her back. So my sister moved into our guest bedroom. My sister also had a boyfriend. Let's call him Jason. Jason was so in love with my sister, he wanted to propose and even asked me to look at rings. Well, Jason proposed and my sister said no. Everyone was shocked. My sister didn't give a reason why she didn't want to marry him, but she was really depressed. So my girlfriend would talk to her and just try to be her friend and comfort her. And I was happy that my girlfriend was trying to help out my sister. Jason kept trying to get my sister back, but she kept saying no. Well, one day I wake up from a nap and I hear weird noises coming from my sister's bedroom. I swing the door open and guess what I see? My sister and my girlfriend naked on her bed making out. The audacity. Part 2 is up. I walk in on my girlfriend and my sister doing the dirty. They both jump off the bed and start getting dressed really quickly. I left the room and sat on the couch. I couldn't even speak. My sister comes out of the room and asked me to understand. She explained to me that my sister was so kind to her after her breakup that she couldn't help but falling in love. I couldn't believe she said love. I just started to cry. Then my girlfriend comes out of the room fully dressed and she swore that this was the first time they had ever even kissed. I didn't believe it for 1 second. My girlfriend was surprisingly really calm and it made me feel even worse. I started to get really angry, realizing that the whole time my sister was living there, they were probably hooking up and that's the reason why she didn't want to stay with her boyfriend or marry him. So I went into my sister's room, grabbed all her clothes and started throwing them out of our balcony. I even threw her laptop out the balcony. And we were on the second floor. My sister was just chasing me around the apartment trying to stop me, but I would push her away. After I caught my sister and girlfriend doing the dirty, I threw all my sister's things out of my apartment. Then I noticed my girlfriend is on her phone, so I take it away and guess what she was looking at? She was deleting her Tinder and Bumble app, which means she was looking for people to date. Mind you, her and I had been in a committed relationship for the past 8 months. My girlfriend had no emotion. She didn't apologize, didn't say anything, but my sister was super emotional, apologizing. Then my girlfriend pipes up and says, you know, this is all your fault. I said, why? She said that I pressured her into moving in with me and that everything happened too quickly, which is not true. We both decided to move in together, and my girlfriend suggested the area we should actually actually live in. Then she turns to my sister and tells her that she's immature and that neither of us are worth being with. I told her to get her things and leave. She said, "You're breaking up with me?" I was like, "Of course I am." And she said that I would never find anyone as good as her. I forgave my sister because she's blood, and we're still living together. My sister has a boyfriend, and I'm trying to date people. But my ex still calls me even though she said I wasn't worth being with.
I never really saw you coming until you turned me around. I used to think I was nothing, but look at this love we found. So give me your hand like you took mine. No, I don't ever wanna see you cry. Oh, yeah, no more tears. Oh, yeah, no more tears. Take that chance, we'll be fine. No, I don't ever wanna see you cry. Oh, yeah, no more tears. Oh, yeah, no more tears.
Am I wrong for telling a social worker the real reason my sister wants a foster kid? I, 28 female, have a sister who's 36. For the sake of the story, I'll just call her Jane. Jane is married to Bob and they have 2 kids, boy and a girl. My niece and nephew are wonderful kids and no trouble at all. They fight as siblings do, but nothing big. I love them. Now for about 2 years, I did live with my sister. It was a miserable time that really affected our relationship. She saw me as free labor, money, and babysitting. Even when I managed to get a small part-time job, she demanded I hand over nearly half my pay or get out. It was hell as she took complete advantage of me. I moved out as soon as I could, and we have little to no contact outside of family gatherings. Now, after I moved out, she started complaining how she has no help with the kids and never gets a break. I babysit sometimes, but I have made it clear just because I'm off work doesn't mean I want an 8-hour day with my niece and nephew. Anyway, she started talking about how she wanted to foster a kid. Not a kid, but a teenager. I pressed her for more info on this, and she said she wants to adopt a teenager so she has a live-in babysitter for her kids. This is her logic. I want a kid around 16 or 17, someone who may have been in the system for a while. They can share a bedroom with your nephew. She only has a 3-bedroom house, or sleep in the garage. They can help me with housework, chores, cook, and help me with my business. She bakes and sells cookies on the side. Also, babysit the kids so me and Bob can go out sometimes or have some time alone. They'll be so grateful for a home and won't complain. I won't have to pay them at all. And when they turn 18, I can just sign up for another foster kid. A teenager will be so much easier than a little kid, and they will be grateful just to have a roof, food, siblings if they have been separated from their real ones, and clothes. What the hell? How do people think of this shit? What am I reading? I was horrified and told her it was a horrible idea, but she didn't listen to me. She went on with it anyways. About a month ago, a social worker showed up at my apartment to ask me some questions about my sister. She had put me down as a character witness or something like that. I immediately told the social worker why my sister wanted to foster a kid and how she treated me when I lived with her. The lady then thanked me. My sister called crying, saying that she wouldn't be considered for any adoptions or fosters. The social worker told her that they felt her home and her weren't a good fit. She asked if I said anything and I told the truth. She went off on me, hung up, and we haven't spoken since. A couple family members are on her side. They think foster kids are effing dogs or something and would be so happy just to have a roof and would gladly do all the housework. So am I wrong here? What? Ugh. Don't have kids if you can't take care of them. Like, it's not, you don't have to have kids if you have, what? People are fucking. Am I wrong for rejecting someone's request to propose at my wedding? My husband and I got married last month and had a small and wonderful wedding. 2 weeks before the wedding, my best friend / maid of honor's boyfriend asked if it would be okay to propose during my reception. I first told him how thrilled I was that he was going to propose to my best friend and how excited she would be, but I really wasn't comfortable with him proposing during the wedding, at least as a public thing. He seemed totally shocked that I said no, which I can understand. He said that weddings are supposed to be about celebrating love and that as her best friend, I should want them to finally be engaged after 11 years together. I absolutely want that for them, but I just didn't understand why it needed to happen during the 5.5-hour window of my ceremony / cocktail hour / reception. I was very apologetic and offered to help however I could with the proposal on any other day, but he was very clearly not happy with me. I haven't heard from my maid of honor since the wedding, which is probably the longest we've ever gone without talking. I had tried several times to get in touch with her and let her know at one point that I had something of hers she had lost at the wedding. Never got a response. I texted the other day saying I was going to drop the lost item off at her house so she'd have it, and she finally responded. Apparently, during the after party at the hotel bar, my maid of honor's boyfriend got very drunk and told her that she would have been engaged that night if I hadn't ruined his plan. She says she isn't exactly mad at me, but she feels like her future engagement is ruined and that I denied her a chance at happiness. Whoa, what? Okay. Another mutual friend who knows what's going on says she doesn't. Another mutual friend who knows what's going on says she doesn't love that he planned to propose at the wedding, but thinks I was the asshole ultimately for saying no. Oh no, hell no! What the f? Get out of here trying to propose at my wedding. It's fine if people say yes to it. More power to you. But if I say no, I might. What? The entitlement of some people. Get the hell out of here.
I, 30 male, pissed my wife, 27 female off, and now she wants me to do everything. To begin, when I met my now wife, she had about $9,000 in credit card debt. She grew up in poverty, got her first credit card, and got into financial trouble with it. She told me about it pretty early on in the serious phase of our relationship, and even told me about her plan to fix it, showed me her budget, and had a time frame. To her credit, she did it. That was 5 years ago. We're now married with twins. She's a stay-at-home mom, but receives about $1,000 per month in VA disability and cleans houses part-time while our kids are in school. The $1,000 goes entirely to our mortgage, plus some of the money that she makes cleaning houses because she likes to put extra on the principal. So she has her own spending money. We do have one credit card, mine, of which she is an authorized user. I do stay vigilant about the card because I guess I never really let myself trust her with money. On to the problem. I noticed earlier this week, after years of good financial decisions and fiscal responsibility on her part, that the credit card seemed higher than normal. My wife hadn't mentioned anything, and I hadn't seen anything expensive coming into the house. So I was shocked to see charges from GameStop, grocery store charges outside of her normal shopping trip, a salon, Walmart, a movie theater, and Amazon. It came out to about $600, and I immediately realized she had a relapse. I confronted her in the kitchen while she was putting together something for our kids' class, and I admit I laid right into her. She agreed. She had messed up, would return everything, and give me back the credit card. I thought this was an admission of guilt, which made me even more angry, and demanded to know how much she spent on these Halloween goodie bags she was putting together because it looked expensive, and I didn't see why we would spend so much on first graders. And she said only $15 since she got everything at the dollar store. She told me that everything had been returned, and now I was in charge of the birthday party, the birthday presents, and the Christmas shopping, and the class Christmas party contribution, since I didn't trust her to do those things. Turns out all those charges were for the kids' birthday and birthday party at the movie theater. Christmas shopping she had actually finished for everyone we usually buy for, and even the salon charges were for our son's haircuts. Now she's returned everything, and even has told me grocery shopping is also my job now. I can't handle all that. I didn't even remember it was my kids' birthday soon. How do I fix this so we can go back to how it was? I've already groveled, and she just says I apparently have 5 years of groveling to do if all I've been waiting for is the other shoe to drop, when she's been nothing but exemplary when it comes to finances in all this time. Help, please. Am I the asshole for causing drama during an important football game? Last weekend, I, female 27, ended feeling a wee bit poorly with what turned out to be appendicitis. We were away for the weekend with my partner, male 39, so I had surgery at a hospital 3 to 4 hours away from home. I had a small complication during surgery, so I had to stay until Wednesday, yesterday. But my partner returned to work on Monday, but he came back to pick me up. The timing was bad because there was an important football game yesterday, and it was really important for my partner to watch it. I am not English, so I don't quite get the importance, but it's a big deal for him. I wanted to make sure he'd see the game. I suggested booking a room near the hospital so we wouldn't miss it due to the drive, but he wanted to see the game at a friend's place. He said he'd make it. While we were waiting to get me discharged, he was getting agitated because it was taking so long. He had to wait outside, so he was in the car the whole time because of restrictions at the hospital. After a couple of hours, he sent me a text that he had to leave or he'd miss the game. I begged him not to leave and reminded I could book a hotel, but he left without me and luckily made it on time to see the start of the game. He said he'd come pick me up tomorrow instead. The hospital wouldn't let me stay over another night or leave alone. Luckily, one of my friends came to get me in the end. She didn't get to the hospital until late, and we got back to London around 2 a.m. The whole time I was trying to call and text my partner, but he only said we could talk about it today. The whole evening I was texting and calling my partner, ever since the moment he left me at the hospital. He only sent me one WhatsApp back that said he'd pick me up later but wanted to see the game. When I got home in the night, he was so angry at me. He said I was the most selfish asshole for completely ringing and texting him during the game, and that I ruined the game for him and embarrassed him in front of his friends.
I hate him.
He said he cannot even look at me and that I bring so much drama with me, it's humiliating to him. I feel at a complete loss.
Bye. Bye.
I think I might be the asshole for not understanding the cultural significance of football and asking my boyfriend to do a completely unreasonable drive to pick me up. But on the other hand, we could have watched the game in a hotel room and I wouldn't have been left alone in a hospital in another country. Am I the asshole?
No.
No, and you need to fucking run.
Literally.
A gaslighting bitch.
Oh my God. It is so concerning to me. I don't want to say it because
Say it. Say it.
people are going to be mad about this. But I just think it's so concerning. Sports are fun and great and awesome. But when it gets to the point where you are putting that above actual like human things, it's so concerning. You are literally to a logo, to a brand name. You are putting like the people that you love in the back burner to a logo.
Story time about how I broke the news to my very religious family that I was single and pregnant. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's sending me on Instagram. My parents are very religious and super strict. I was never allowed to have boyfriends or even talk to boys or even have guy friends. My girlfriends only could come over to my house and I could never go over to friends' houses. I was never even allowed to go to parties. Anytime I needed to make a phone call, my parents would monitor the phone call, so there was absolutely no way I could get away with anything. And I never even lied to them. I got straight A's and graduated valedictorian from my high school. When I turned 18, I went to the university my parents wanted me to go to. My parents are very rich and have lots of money, so I knew that they would get me into whatever university they wanted me to go to. When I finally got accepted into university, I begged them to let me stay on campus, even though we're only a 2-hour drive away from the university. I wanted to have privacy, and of course, I wanted to feel like a grown-up. After months and months of convincing my parents, they finally said yes. They even got me a private dorm so that I wouldn't have to share my room with anyone. For the first time in my life, I had independence and I could make my own decisions. But still, all in all, I was a pretty good girl. I would go to class, go study at the library, and then go back to my dorm. I never went to any parties, but I did start making friends. One of these friends was a really wild girl. She was in my dorm building, and she pretty much did everything I ever wanted to do. She was wild and crazy, and I just wanted to be like her. She started inviting me to all these house parties, and I didn't know how to say no. I went to one of them and I met this really cool guy. At least I thought he was cool at the time. We spoke all night and he tried to make me believe that he was this perfect little boy. And of course, I fell for it. After hanging out a few more times, we did the dirty. And then he ghosted me. This was the first time I had done anything like that and I was really heartbroken. I was convinced that this guy was gonna marry me. That's how naive I was. After the last time I'd seen him, I realized that I hadn't gotten my period. And when I checked my calendar, it had been 2 months since I got my last period. Now you may ask why I didn't notice this before. Pretty much because I was studying all the time. I never really gave myself any breaks and I was constantly reading books and doing homework. I basically lived in my books. When the realization of not having my period for 2 months came in, I was devastated and I knew that I was pregnant. I ran to the nearest drugstore and got a test. When I saw that it was positive, the first thing I did was call the boy. But like I said, he had ghosted me. But this time he did answer the phone because it had been a few months. I told him that the test was positive. He told me the baby wasn't his and then he hung up. Unfortunately for me, I had no idea where he lived. I decided to Google his name and apparently he didn't even go to the university that I was going to. He was just a friend of some guy that went there. Finally, Christmas break arrives. I was 4 weeks pregnant and I showed up to my parents' house. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how I broke the news to my very religious parents that I was single and pregnant. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it was sent me on Instagram. I was 4 weeks pregnant, the guy that got me pregnant had ghosted me, and I knew I had to go home for Christmas from university. I had thought of how I was going to tell my parents and I even wrote them a letter. I was simply going to hand my parents the letter as soon as I got home. But when I got there, they were so happy to see me. I hadn't been home for a few months and I could tell that they really missed me and I just didn't want to spoil the moment. So instead of telling them the first day, I waited until the second day. I came out from my bedroom and my mom asked me why I looked so pale. This is when I just said it. I'm pregnant. My mom instantly began to cry and asked me what happened. I could hear my dad coming down from the stairs. I turned around and said to him, I'm pregnant. When my dad saw my mom crying, he sat down on the couch and said nothing. And this was scarier than him yelling at me. My mom joined him on the couch and then I sat on the floor right next to them. That's when I just decided to tell them the truth. From beginning to end, I told them exactly what happened. Then my dad said, don't worry, we will help you. I could not believe it. And as soon as my dad said that, my mom stopped crying and said, yeah, he's right. We're your family and you don't need that guy. The only thing my dad asked from me was to stay in university. And I told him that there was no way I was going to let my education go to waste. I could tell my parents were really disappointed in me, but they didn't say anything. We had all our family coming over for Christmas dinner, and my dad announced it to everyone then. Instead of acting the way I thought he was going to act, he was almost happy. He wasn't angry, but he was disappointed, but he didn't hide it like a little dirty secret. My family congratulated me, and they were all very happy. But of course, they started asking all these questions. When I told them that the father wouldn't be involved, they were really upset. Luckily, my aunt was dating a private investigator at the time. I gave her the baby daddy's number and name, and she gave it to her boyfriend. He came back with a bunch of information for me. Apparently, he was a dropout and didn't have have a job. Buddy came from a very wealthy family, so my parents and I decided to get a lawyer and ask for child support. When I had the baby, my family was so happy. He is literally the light of our lives. He is so loved by his grandparents, and I'm so grateful to my parents. We all live together, and my baby is 5 years old now. His grandpa and him are best friends, and they do everything together. Now, the baby daddy wants to be in my child's life, but I don't know if I should say yes or no. Up until last year, he didn't want anything to do with us. But now that he sees that the baby is older and he plays, he wants to be involved now. I don't know if I should say yes, but I also feel bad depriving my child of his father. Merry Christmas, and what should I do?
Am I the asshole for asking my son and daughter-in-law for a copy of the key to the new house they bought? 2 weeks ago, my son Ethan, 27, and his wife Jess, 30, bought a small one-story house in the town we live in. After settling down, they invited us for a small party for the occasion. We sat for dinner and talked about the house a bit. Me, my husband, and Jess continued conversing after Ethan excused himself to take an important call. Jess showed me the original key to the house, and I asked if she made copies yet, and she said no. I said that she should and also give one copy to me as well. She looked at me funny and asked why she should, and I explained it's necessary in emergencies. She rudely said, I don't know what kind of emergency would require you having a key to her house. Sure wouldn't be a fire incident. Am I the asshole for asking my son and daughter-in-law for a copy of the key to the new house they bought? She obviously didn't seem to have any idea that a fire incident wasn't what I meant, and I got offended by her sarcasm. I pointed out that it's not just her decision because this is my son's house as well. She smiled, trying to be polite, and stated that the only ones who contribute towards the house get a copy and that I don't need one anyway. She also assured me that my son will have the same answer for me, basically saying don't bother bringing this up to him because he'll tell you the same thing. But I did, and she spoke on his behalf the entire argument, repeating what she said over and over. She called me pushy and I called her rude and disrespectful. My husband and I left in a rush, and my husband went on about how paranoid and controlling I was.
My wife and I have been together for a long time. She's been the homemaker and I the breadwinner. We have 3 kids together. My wife's been responsible for basically everything that isn't bringing home the paycheck. I help her when I can, but by the time I get home, there isn't much to do. When the kids were younger, they were already in bed and she was waiting for me when I got home. She's balanced our checkbook and decided what goes into what account. She's done all the shopping for groceries, gifts, and home appliances. She has been responsible for taking our children to appointments, friends' houses, and after-school activities. She's been my confessor who I share all my pent-up feelings with and get things off my chest that I wouldn't do with anyone else. And I assume that she does the same with the kids, meaning she handles 100% of emotional labor and probably 75% of the housework. The kids don't have to do chores. She got the kids ready for school and put them to bed. She's woken me up, started the shower, made my breakfast, and ironed my suit and laid it out before she ties my tie, hands me my lunch, and kisses me goodbye. She's done this for over 20 years. I guess somewhere along the way, I stopped thanking her since I was so used to it. It wasn't intentional and I genuinely appreciate her, but I just didn't think to express it. About a week ago, she wasn't feeling well and didn't wake up before me, meaning I was basically screwed since I rely on her to get me ready in the morning. It's pathetic, I know, but it's just my routine and has been for decades. I managed to make it work and I was upset with her even though I realized I shouldn't have been. But I wasn't expecting to have to wake up on my own and get ready without her. It's sad, but it's all I know. Due to me expressing my displeasure over her not getting up in time, she has informed me that I'll be on my own for the unforeseeable future. Look, I made a mistake and was wrong for getting upset, but I feel like I do have the right to be angry since I rely on her for that. I got mad at my wife and now she has informed me that she will no longer be getting me ready for work in the morning. Am I the asshole? My 10-year-old neighbor broke my heart tonight. He lives with his aunt after his mom passed away earlier this year and he has 2 younger sisters. I sometimes watch the kids to help his aunt out and every time I see her, she looks worn out. A few months ago, he asked me if he could do some chores to get money because I'm rich and he wanted to buy a birthday cake for his birthday. I asked him why he thought I was rich and he said I always have food in the kitchen, my toilet always flushes, and the apartment was always cold. This was in the summer, so he knows that I'm rich. It was a gut punch because I'm not rich, but I do have my basic needs with a little extras like air conditioning. Tonight, he knocked on my door and asked if I knew if Santa was coming to my house, and if he was, could he and his sister spend the night so they could get presents that they told Santa they wanted. He proceeded to say that he knows that Santa doesn't give gifts to 10-year-old big boys, but wanted his sisters to get gifts. When I asked him who told him that big boys don't get gifts, he said his aunt did. When I asked her what was going on and if she knew that there were a few organizations who would have given all 3 kids gifts, she said that she was afraid to try because she's undocumented. The fear in her eyes made mine well up because I knew she was afraid I was going to turn her in. I wish I had known sooner, even though I have nothing myself, and told her I would help. I went to the Dollar Tree and got each a Santa coloring book and markers. When I was dropping them off, he saw me and his eyes lit up and he said, "You're friends with Santa?" The joy on his face for a coloring book made me sob when I got home. I know that we're all doing the best that we can right now, but I truly hope every kid gets something from Santa. Story time about the nightmare customer that tried to build their own off-menu pasta dish. Being a picky eater is fine, but at the minimum, you have to work within the confines of what's actually available. Enter one stubborn asshole who took the menu items not as a suggestion, but as a point of negotiation. And it went like this. "I'm looking at pastas. Do you have any rotini?" No, just spaghetti, rigatoni, fettuccine, penne, and bow tie pasta. That page has all the available pasta dishes we serve. Well, you should carry rotini, but I'll start with a fettuccine base, and I like to add bolognese, mushrooms, basil, bell pepper. I'm sorry to cut you off, sir, but we don't offer build your own pastas. We only offer what's listed on the menu, and I can make a couple of modifications. Well, that's ridiculous. If you have the items, you should be able to make it. It's restaurant policy. It helps the kitchen flow. He stares angrily at me. Well, then I'm gonna need a minute. No problem, bud. I hadn't even asked if your table was ready to order before you started firing away anyway. I talked to the kitchen manager to give him a heads up, and he doubles down on not allowing grand modifications. I return after a few, and this guy's body language tells me that he's already prepared an opening statement for a courtroom. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the chicken Alfredo, but instead of the cream sauce, I want bolognese, no tomatoes, I want extra mushrooms, add basil, bell peppers, no Parmigiano, and instead of chicken, I want fresh cod. I replied, sir, I can only do a couple substitutions and our fresh cod is a separate dish entirely. Look, please talk to your kitchen, it's what I want. This guy seemed like he was trying to really impress his friends, who all looked pretty mortified. I find the kitchen manager again. He shakes his head and goes, "Alright, we'll bring in both pasta bolognese and a fresh fish of the day. $42 pasta. Bravo, buddy." The table gets their food, and this guy flashes me the most idiotic smirk like he just got one over on us. See, that wasn't so hard. And by the way, it's delicious. You should think about adding it to your menu. This self-satisfied piece of work. They finally get the bill, and this dude's face is priceless. Well, there definitely was a price to his expression, about $42. He goes, "Did you really charge me for 2 entrees?" I said, "Yes, I told you the cod was a separate dish." He didn't have much room to argue there. Thankfully, his friend paid and left a fat tip, probably out of vicarious embarrassment.